everybody, and thank you for joining us for this CabinSpace live session. We're running these here today all day. I'm, as Becky said, I'm the editor of Inflight magazine. I'm pleased to be moderating this session today. Our topic is Beyond Hollywood, Diversifying IFE Content and Monetisation. And we will be looking at how airlines can deliver diverse in-flight entertainment that meets the evolving passenger tastes and also the regulatory compliance requirements, which are of course very important. And we'll look at maximizing the monetization opportunities as well. And we have a really great panel here today that consists of Ricky Jardine from Stellar Entertainment, Corinne Streichert from IFECtiv, and David Whelan from Valour Consultancy. Now, if you'd like to say a few words about yourselves and your companies, please.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. So I'm Ricky Jardine. I'm the SVP of Strategy at Stellar. I've been in the industry now for 26 years. Most of that was in Asia, but I'm now based back in London. So still doing in-flight entertainment, managing the client's expectations, really.
My name is David Whelan. I'm a senior analyst at Valour Consultancy. And we do market intelligence and consultancy to vendors and airlines across the market. Most of my work focuses on in-flight connectivity, entertainment, digital applications on board, that sort of thing.
Thank you, David. And Corinne?
Hi, I'm Corinne Streichert. I'm the founder of IFECtiv and also the producer and host of the On Your Flight Today podcast. At IFECtiv, we offer advisory services to stakeholders within the industry on all areas of in-flight entertainment and connectivity.
Thank you very much. So I think this is going to be a very interesting and insightful discussions because we have such a varied panel, so you can all give us your viewpoints and your insight. So if we want to start with the passenger expectations and how they are evolving rapidly, so would you all like to share how you see or define the diverse range of in-flight entertainment content this year or in the future?
Yes, I mean, diverse content sits in really two areas, whether that's looking at what is essentially the established Western content, featuring the favourites, and then also adding diverse content to that, or sort of more niche content, and that can be Western niche content, as well as diverse content that brings in international content, movies, TV, from what suits your passenger demographics. I mean, we at Stellar, we've got the Parrot Analytics is now part of our content programming portal, so that airlines are able to then see what's performing well on the ground to see how they can bring that sort of diversity into their own content on board.
Yes, that's brilliant. Very interesting development, actually, that I read about not long ago. So
yes, it's literally we have an API set up with Parrot that enables it to feed directly from their portal into our portal as well. So yeah.
Indeed, great. David, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what Ricky said. I think you have one aspect of it is the regional content, just making sure that passengers on different routes for different airlines have, a range of content that is relevant to them. I think we'd definitely see it move in that direction. I think the other aspect of it is the diversity of the format as well. So not just kind of movies and TV, but I think increasingly we're seeing players in the IFE market kind of shift towards trying out some more short form content, trying to sort of, in some ways, kind of rival that sort of social media experience that people get. So I think there's some really interesting stuff happening in that space. It's quite, it's still quite kind of nascent in the market, I think. And I think the kind of regional content and more kind of personalised choices, I guess we'll probably come on to later. yeah, I think there's quite a lot of interesting stuff happening.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, David. And Corinne, what do you think yourself?
I think I think it goes beyond just curation. I think passengers today want choice, and I think curating the content is one aspect of it, but also access, because they do bring on their own devices as well, and they bring on their own subscriptions. So I think the challenge for airlines is understanding how the balance between what the customer wants to do and what they want to offer the customer as well. So I think that also, taking a step back from that, you're looking at, okay, well, how do we diversify that content to be able to give them choice, but they also don't want to be overwhelmed by choice as well, I think is what I've been reading about recently.
Indeed, yes. Very good. And so, of course, Hollywood content, Western content has dominated in the past. And do you think airlines are still too reliant on this type of content and haven't moved on with the times yet?
Sorry, Ricky.
Well, it's yes. I mean that's I think something that's been spoken about for many years, really. I suppose the issue that we have is Western content. Generally these distributors have established rights and distribution, so it's very easy for airlines and CSPs to be able to pick up the Western content. And even though there is a growing market of distributors selling international or regional content, there's various rights issues and things like that to look at. But though for actual content use, I did a little bit of homework, and I went onto the Box Office Mojo site just to see what internationally what's happening of all the 30 or so different countries that they feature. All but 2 had a Hollywood movie as their number 1 movie in the week that I chose, which was 2 weeks ago. And I think the availability also of the different dubs and subs that are available for that content means it's easier to reach those targets, where international content sometimes can just be a little bit restricted to the native language and English subs.
Sure.
So it's a difficult thing for an airline to manage.
I can imagine. What are your thoughts, David?
Yeah, I think the Hollywood content will continue to form the backbone of most kind of IFE content offerings that we see in aviation. But I think most airlines and IFE content service providers are getting better at increasing the range of content that they have available. I think it's probably been helped by the success of things like Squid Game and or like K-pop more broadly, kind of showcasing that regional content from like non-Western content providers can still have a huge impact on international audiences. So I think that has made them realise that there's a lot of value in that, and particularly curating it for particular routes. And then I think really the trick will be, it's just about using that kind of content to maybe like showcasing it on certain routes and for certain airlines, rather than that just kind of being used to kind of fill up the libraries as such. And there's definitely like interest from passengers if it's kind of contextual and it's route relevant. I think people enjoy seeing something new that maybe they've not got on their streaming platform at home.
Sure, that's great, thank you. And Corinne, what do you think? Are we still too reliant on Western content?
Sorry, it's really hard to hear.
Sorry?
It's hard to hear.
Yes, the same question basically, that are we still too reliant on Western content on board flights?
I think it's really the baseline, considering the impact that the Hollywood content has globally. But I think the airlines also have a responsibility to look at who's flying, what they like, and to really get to know their customer, and to curate and tailor their offerings, also beyond content, to their passengers and what they want. And something that I've seen regionally I believe it does vary, and I'm sure, Ricky, you've probably seen that as well. So what works in some parts doesn't work in others, and also when you're looking at airlines that may have that global presence, they need to be able to be flexible and accommodate those different passengers that fly. But I think ultimately the answers are in the data, and if they're not getting the answers out of their data, then their systems are not capturing and tagging correctly as well. I think that really gives insight into what your passengers are doing, what you should be offering them as well.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, if I can agree with I think usage data is a phenomenal tool for us. We were working with one of our customers just before Easter, actually. And the data that we managed to pull up, and then it was route specific as well, that we could get from what they gave us, and we cleaned it up. And we highlighted areas that which even they weren't aware of what was popular on certain routes to, say, Lagos or to Miami, and suddenly it made them even rethink internally how they're going to look at the type of content they put on and focus on these passengers.
Yeah.
So it's it's a very
and you're
good
probably
point.
getting some really great insights too, because you've got quite a diverse range of customers across the world.
Exactly,
so you're really getting that geographical insight,
Yes.
regional, into what works and what doesn't. And I think feeding that back to airlines, in addition to the data they get from their hardware providers as well, I think that really tells the story. So.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of differences between regions and, the sort of passenger and what they prefer. So if we come to connectivity now, that's of course a big part of in-flight entertainment delivery and options at the moment or today. And so how important is it, in your opinion, to offer free Wi-Fi from in-flight entertainment point of view?
Well, I suppose it goes, anything free is nice.
Yes.
I remember back in the day when I used to travel a lot around Asia, of one of the key expenses was paying for Wi-Fi or connectivity back then in a hotel. And now you wouldn't dream of paying for connection within a hotel. So I think the natural growth is going to be within airlines in the next 5 or 10 years. It will become more ubiquitous, and it will be seen just as part of the overall package that you get. And it gives an airline an opportunity to get additional data, because passengers will be using that. They can then find out more information about their passengers and effectively sell them more product, or so that's
yeah, exactly that. I think often IFC gets spoken about as a competitor to IFE, but it can obviously be an enabler as well. There's plenty of opportunity that opens up with advertising and e-commerce opportunities, live TV, things like that, diversifying the content portfolio. I think it's a tool to bring the best out of IFE in a lot of cases. And from what we've heard, we speak to airlines on a regular basis, and some that have deployed free Wi-Fi in the last 12 months. And they haven't necessarily reported any drop-off in the number of passengers using and engaging with seatback IFE content. In some cases, it seems to have gone up, where maybe people are just a bit more engaged, or they're just not falling asleep on the flight instead if they're a little bit more active. I think there's still that passenger preference for people like the connectivity on their phone and being able to message people and scroll through social media, but I think they will still gravitate towards the seatback IFE if it's a quality product on board.
Thank you, David. Corinne, what are your thoughts?
I don't believe anything's free, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I think, as a passenger, I want it fast and I want it free, but I also want very little friction in accessing that, and restriction as well. So I think, what role does it play in the overall experience? I think we are seeing more like a convergence of IFE from a seatback perspective and IFC different airlines have different models and there's different economics behind it. But I think, I'm not going to single out certain airlines that I've flown recently as well, but we are seeing different options and models evolving. And I still think it's early days before we really see if they're going to stick around and how that's really being well received. And also in terms of return on investment, implementing these kinds of solutions as well, I think is a big question in my mind, that I'd like to see how that tracks down the track. But definitely free, it all started actually quite a while ago with JetBlue many years ago. And we are seeing that evolve in different ways and within the industry.
Right, thank you, Corinne. When we consider short-haul flights and long-haul flights, of course the offering will be different, and more short-haul flights are now offering various content options, in-flight entertainment-wise. So how do you see this sort of market developing and what's being offered?
I think certainly for an airline, their aim is to maintain a consistent package throughout. So if you're a carrier that has long-haul flights that's bringing passengers into your hub, and then they're going to be taking another flight on to a regional destination, maybe on holiday or business, you don't want there to be too much of a change in that experience. They've enjoyed everything on the long-haul flight, and then suddenly you go on and there's nothing. There are opportunities because you can save money because they're shorter flights, so there are different licenses come into play. But you can target that content to be a little bit more specific for that passenger. So you can still give them, for one of our customers, their long-haul flight has absolutely everything, has a lot of Hollywood new releases, and has regional and local new releases as well, and classic libraries and TV, etc. But then when on their shorter routes, their domestic and their regional, they've really kind of cut that down, but they've actually managed to maintain passenger satisfaction because there's enough variety there, and it doesn't seem like there's a drop-off in quality. So it's easy to be able to manage that, and everyone feels that they're getting a great experience out of it. And you can, as I say, target on those little flights to select content that is suitable for the kind of the demographic there.
Yes, that's a very good point, actually. It's all about the passenger experience, isn't it? So, Corinne, what are your thoughts on this?
I think, obviously, long haul, you've got more time to binge, which you're probably seeing in the data as well, versus, like say, domestic flights versus long haul international flights. I think also depends on what the IFE or the IFEC offering is from the airline. As we've seen, some offer just wireless or connectivity on more domestic short haul, and long haul you do see more of the embedded seatback IFE. So I think that also needs to be taken into consideration from an airline perspective when looking at what the content offering will be. But obviously I think domestic, assuming depending what domestic is, where you are in the world, it's a shorter flight, less time to watch long movies. You probably want more short form content, potentially more destination specific as well, which you would want on long haul, but you're mindful of the length of the flight and the time as well. So I think that should influence what is available, but then that raises the question of managing multiple content types, depending on how big your fleet is as well. So I don't think there's a one size fits all. I really think it depends on the airline, what their passenger experience goals are, what their IFEC offering is, and what they're working towards, and consistency across different, many airlines have different kinds of aircraft and all things, lots of balls in the air to juggle at that time. So I think it's really finding that perfect balance. And again, it's not a one size fits all. I think the region plays a big part in it as well, and passenger behaviour within that region, and who their customers are and who flies them as well.
Yes, there's definitely a lot of things to consider there. David, do you have any sort of perspective when it comes to data on this topic?
I think as both Ricky and Corinne have said, it's I think the sort of fleet harmonisation part of it is quite important. As Ricky said, as a passenger, if you're getting on a regional jet or a narrow body versus a wide body, there's some level of expectation that the kind of service you'll get is relatively consistent. I think the key is just on maybe highlighting and showcasing different services. So, that longer form content might still be there, but maybe the shorter form content or some of the more diverse offerings are maybe highlighted a little bit more on the shorter haul flights or on particular regional routes. And then in terms of the data, I guess it's because of the huge increase in the amount of data that's available to content service providers and to airlines now. I think there's much more opportunity to be agile and be able to shape your strategy based on the routes, based on the whether it's long haul or short haul. And I think we're starting to see the beginning of AI impacting that as well, and I think that will potentially allow companies in the space, airlines as well, to be even faster, even more agile with kind of shaping different strategies for different aircraft.
Indeed, and yes, data is one of those topics that are one of the hot topics at the moment, and of course content personalisation on board. Carriers are sort of wising up to it, and airlines like Delta are of course leading the way there. So what are your thoughts on to what extent should the data gathered from these insights should drive the content personalisation on board?
Yeah, I think in terms of the personalisation side of it, I think there seems like the discussion's kind of moved on from where it was a couple of years ago, where obviously there was initially I think a desire to know more about the passenger, to be able to match maybe the kind of content that's suggested to people based on their gender or their age, etc. But I think I know there's companies in the space now like Aeroplay and others that are working on kind of AI focused suggestions for people where they don't even necessarily need the passenger data. It can still be helpful, but the system is just kind of intuitively and in like real time, based on how people interact with it and the types of things that they click on and maybe the trailers that they watch, that it's very, very quickly, even across the space of a flight, it's able to learn about the passenger and suggest more relevant content for them. So I think we'll see both kind of strategies used. I think there's already stuff deployed out there like Delta Sync, which is already able to they're using passenger data to be able to provide like exclusive offers, prioritizing certain types of content for different passengers, and as this stuff is deployed more and more and across more and more aircraft, and then as you gradually learn more and more about passengers, then it kind of just gets better and better, and then it's essentially learning as the streaming platforms would do as well.
Great, thank you, David. Corinne, do you have anything to add? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I've got many on personalisation.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I'll keep it brief. I think I've read a lot about passengers want personalisation. I believe it's probably 50-50. I think some would want it, some would not. I think there are passengers that like that discovery, right, and don't want to feel like they're missing out, that FOMO, so they want to make choices for themselves rather than the airline relying on the data that it has. And then when you look at personalisation, there's also the challenge of, okay, what data do I have? Are they travelling in that capacity? Like, for example, there was something I spoke about a while ago in terms of different personas. When I'm travelling for business, it's different to when I'm travelling for leisure, and my taste and what I want to watch is different. And you look at what data the airline has, are they capturing that granularity to know, okay, Corinne's on a business flight, here's what she likes to do, versus, she's travelling with family, here's what she likes to do. So I think that will always remain a challenge until they can really solve for that and really drill down like the purpose of why they're flying, what they like and whether, those certain behaviours, I think there'll always be an element of, okay, they're not going to really get it right all the time. And then that raises the question, well, do we really want to, to what extent do we want to personalise, but also make it available for them to have discovery? So it could be coexisting together. It really depends on the airline's approach and what they're trying to achieve. But I think personalisation, lots of positives to it, but I think there's also some downsides to it as well from a passenger perspective.
That's a really good point, actually, Corinne. I think it'll be quite difficult to find the balance, and it's something definitely to consider. And of course, there are the regulatory challenges as well when it comes to offering global content on board and how to manage all that. Ricky, you mentioned your partnership with Parrot Analytics. Can you share how they sort of help you guys with this?
Well, for the regulatory elements of content, I mean, Parrot just exposes the content for us to be able to, or makes us more aware of, I suppose, how content is being tracked on the ground. But as far as actual content regulations, that slightly becomes a different element, because that's license clearing, as I mentioned earlier, with Hollywood, how they have they have infrastructure in place. They manage their content globally, and they have those licenses in place. Whereas for local or international content, I suppose, there are very few distributors that will pick up global rights for that. So they'll be buying regional rights. So, you have to make sure that the rights are approved, or the airline has to know that the rights are approved for their territory, whether they're available for a certain period of time. So there's all of these factors that slightly make it more of a challenge for the international content against the more established Western content. But as I say, thankfully, that is changing. There are far more distributors coming up that are offering more international content. They've cleared the rights, so that takes away all of that risk for the airline and the CSP as well.
Great, thank you. David, what do you think? Do you have any thoughts on the regulatory challenges as such?
Yeah, I think, I mean, as Ricky said, I think it's just getting, the process is getting a lot quicker than it probably was in the past. Content cycles are getting quicker as well. I think obviously I think there's always going to be challenges there, but it seems at least like those hurdles are being overcome at a faster rate, that, service providers are able to match content or make adjustments to content, or the type of portfolio an airline would get based on where they are, or any kind of adjustments they need to make to that. It seems like, I think just the ability of cloud synchronization is making content cycles faster. I think AI will probably help as well with some aspects of this as well. It will always be a challenge for service providers and for airlines, but it seems like the whole architecture behind it is becoming more and more streamlined.
Thank you. Corinne, any thoughts on this?
I think when it comes to content licensing, I think it's a very complex topic, and I think it's probably too complex for this forum.
Exactly.
However, and there's lots of conversation about that at the moment. It's very hot. I think what's really important is, what role does the airline play in providing that content to its passengers, and that has implications for licensing as well. Whether it's in a broadcast format through embedded IFE or edge caching, or if the customers bring on their own subscription. It's a whole can of worms. I think I'll keep zipped up for now,
Yes.
but I think it's not an easy question, but definitely a conversation the industry needs to have. And I think that conversation goes beyond aviation. I think commercial aviation, which we play quite a huge role in, I think we've also got to look at private aviation. We've also got to look at cruise lines and trains. So I don't think it's a conversation that's isolated. And correct me if you think I'm wrong. I mean, I know you guys live and breathe it all the time.
They exist.
So I don't think it's one that we can solve, but I think it's one that we can probably help drive within various transport and travel industries.
True. Yeah, that's a very good point. So if we now come to the monetization opportunities when it comes to in-flight entertainment, we got various options. We got loyalty schemes. We got advertising. What do you think about the monetization as such? Would you say, if you think about balancing things like advertising with the content, how do we get that right balance?
It's very difficult. As a full service carrier, the passenger expectation is they're going to get on board, they'll get, food, alcohol and entertainment. And that does come with, whether it's advertising within the content, so that'll be pre-roll. Again, I know airlines or systems have disabled the opportunity for passengers to scroll through the adverts, which, okay, is fine for the first hour, but then, if you're on a long-haul flight and every 30 minutes you're watching adverts, it can be a challenge. However, looking at other areas to monetize, there's free content. You're never going to generate enough revenue through monetization to cover the cost of your IFE. So I think the balance is finding how you can make sure you don't feel that you're interrupting your passengers' viewing experience by just bombarding them with content, with adverts, but you can find either sponsored content and things like that. So there's slightly more sort of subliminal ways in which you can monetize content, though again, how much that generates in revenue for the airline is probably not huge in terms of the cost of the overall IFE. But
Sure. Yes. What do you think, David?
Yeah, I think it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all model. So, yeah, as Ricky said, you're going to have some airlines, premium full-service carriers that won't want any advertising or any kind of obstructive advertising on board. Whereas for others that are maybe hoping to balance balance their costs a little bit, then it's a good option for them. I think, as you see in more and more low latency connectivity on board, as you see in platforms improving and becoming more dynamic, there's a lot more opportunity there for to really kind of generate more revenue from ad income if airlines are interested in that model. And just maybe away from traditional content, but just in terms of the platforms themselves, I think they're becoming much more agile. There's a lot more that they can do. Even if you're just talking about, for instance, it'd be one thing just to have the food and beverage menu on board, but I'm seeing providers now that are showcasing it at this trade show today. They're doing that in a much more dynamic way, where these platforms can really enable in-flight retail to be substantially increased by just making it more interactive, making it more, making sure passengers are kind of suggested, in-flight retail services or app services and e-commerce opportunities and things like that are maybe suited to them or where they're going. Again, it kind of links back into the personalisation conversation as well.
Great. Corinne, what do you think about the monetization opportunities? What are the biggest sort of opportunities for airlines?
I think when it comes to monetization, it's really dependent on the technology. And when you're looking from an IFEC perspective, it depends what technology and what level of technology the airline has. And then I think they really need to take a look at, does it make sense given their business model, their passengers, where they fly as well. I don't think it makes sense for everybody for all the airlines to be looking to monetize their IFEC. For some it does, for others it doesn't. And I think, again, as I said, technology, and also they don't want to run the risk of alienating their passengers. But one thing that's really interesting, and that I've seen happen quite recently in other hospitality areas, is more of an all-inclusive starting to emerge in some areas of hospitality. So I thought, and I don't know if you've seen that as well. Yeah, I've been just some stuff on the Travel Channel, but moving away from what they call in the US nickel and diming, which is a concept I learned when I moved to the US, but more all-inclusive, because passengers don't want to be whipping out their credit card, or no matter how easy you make it pairing their app or whatever, they just want to pay their ticket, get on, have everything, and not go through that process. So I think, again, it's a balance, and it's one that every airline, it's unique to every airline and their passengers, in the network and the countries that they serve. So again, not a one-size-fits-all, but the challenge is a lot of the technology can be kind of one-size-fits-all, and they've got to work out, well, do we really want to implement this? And also, we can't overlook the operational impact of implementing these systems. In theory, it all sounds great, but when you've got to manage that, in addition to servicing your passengers, content, and all the other aspects of technology on board products and coordination throughout the organisation, it's no easy task. So I think technology plays a key.
Great, thank you, Corinne. Of course, relationships between airlines and content providers and companies like tech platforms are important in developing in-flight entertainment content and the directions where they go. Could you maybe share some examples of partnerships that you think are successful, that worked well?
I mean, when you're looking at the relationship between the OEMs and the airline and the CSP, I mean, we as a company it's a very important part of our business approach. Really, is to develop those relationships. And actually, what we have with a couple of customers is that even though we will have our regular content chats with the airline, between the programming team and the airline, we also have technical calls where we have the OEM, the airline, and ourselves all on the call together, so that everyone can understand. I mean, many airlines have multiple platforms, or they'll have the same product but different family or different products within that family. And it's great for the tech teams to be able to understand the limitations and the capacity of these different systems, so that we can then provide that back to the airline and give them and their passengers a much better experience, because we can utilize all of that and kind of meet the capacity limits. So yeah, it's something that as Stella we've always maintained and developed those relationships with obviously with our customers, but also with the OEM as well, to make sure that it's as smooth an operation as it ever can be.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Ricky. Any thoughts, Corinne, David?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think airlines definitely, they value having partners, not just suppliers. I think those relationships are still really important, particularly for for a smaller airline. It might be fine for a major US carrier they might have the people internally that can be involved in a project and help on the content curation side of it. But for smaller airlines, for sure, it's there might be a small team, maybe even just a couple of people managing the platform. So I think having that partnership with service providers is still really useful. I think it's still a major part of it. In terms of the partnerships with tech companies, I think we're starting to see interesting content partnerships, particularly in North America, where you're getting airlines maybe partnering directly with Spotify or Amazon Prime. I suspect we'll probably see more and more of that happening as well. It's an interesting time.
Brilliant, thank you, David. I think we're actually at full time now, so we got a few minutes for any questions that the audience might have. Anybody want to ask anything? Maybe share something? No? Okay, well that's great. Thank you so much, Ricky, David and Corinne. It's been really, really great discussion, and thank you to the audience. Thanks for coming along. Maybe stay on for the next one. It's about cabin comfort, which I'm also moderating, so thank you.